My friends, freedom of speech is under attack. And here come you and I to the rescue. My name's Howard Riell. This is Riell Truth. Welcome to Thursday. Call-in number, you know it by now, 877-254-7524. Housekeeping note, I'm only on Tuesday next week. Memorial Day is Monday. Wednesday and Thursday, of course, are Shavuos, so I'll be off. So tune in Tuesday. Let's kick it. Item from InfoWars. A number of companies have pulled ads from Fox News host Sean Hannity's show, Hannity, after he pledged to continue investigating circumstances surrounding the death of murdered DNC employee Seth Rich. Companies including Cars.com, Peloton, and Lisa Sleep have all given in to pressure to cease advertising on the show over Hannity's pursuit of now retracted claims made by Fox News that murdered DNC employee Seth Rich had contact with WikiLeaks before his death. On Tuesday evening, Hannity invited internet entrepreneur Kim.com onto his show to discuss his claim that Seth Rich had provided WikiLeaks with internal Democrat Party emails. Unquote. My friends, this is how the left works. Rather than hearing your ideas and putting forth what they consider better ideas, they simply move to shut you down. To shut down free speech. They attack you, slander you, insult you, do everything they can to destroy you. Well, that's not the American way. It's not even the fair way. The left has to be defeated. Forget about meeting them halfway. They're not interested in meeting us halfway. They need to be overcome. So what I want you to do, I want you to go to the Fox News website. I want you to message Fox News. I want you to go to Twitter, and I want you to message Sean Hannity himself. Say, we are with you. We're all for free speech. We're against liberals shutting down free speech. We're all for America and the Constitution. And no, we will not permit this boycott of free speech on the Sean Hannity show to succeed. And at the same time, I want you to call newspapers, radio and TV stations. I want you to go on the internet and get the word out that no, we will not knuckle under to fascists who are trying to shut down free speech in America. Not going to happen. Not to Sean Hannity, not to Howard Riell, and my friends, not to you. No one is going to take away your voice if I have anything to say about it. So get busy, get active, get loud, defend your right to free speech. Because if they're allowed to curb that, well, then you can kiss all the rest of your freedoms goodbye. It's Thursday. It's Riell Truth. And we'll be right back.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
The associates at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter in Lafayette, Vermont. No one anywhere is more noble, righteous, selfless, or courageous than our United States Armed Forces. These brave men and women and their families foot the bill for our freedom every day. Send a military care package today to let them know that they are in our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts. This message is from the associates at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter on Highway 287 in Lafayette. They're on the air because they care.
If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Ferris Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-780-0343. Ferris Survival.
By the way, my friends, since you asked, I'll tell you. Since I'm only going to be on one day next week, Tuesday, you might start to suffer from going cold turkey without Howard Riell's input all week long, and I empathize and I sympathize with that. Here's the solution. Go to Amazon.com, go to virtualbookworm.com, go to BarnesandNoble.com, just about any .com there is, and get my book, Riell Truth Stay Angry. 500 some odd pages of pure conspiratorial delight. And by the way, you'll finally learn why things happen in America the way they happen. Let's start with Roger Stone. He's on InfoWars talking about the Seth Rich murder, almost certainly by people in the Democrat Party, although I have no proof. I'm not accusing anybody, but 2 and 2 is 4, right? The topic has turned radioactive almost overnight. Here's Roger Stone.
Well, Owen, I want to talk about what I think is developing as the most interesting congressional race, perhaps in the country. Deborah Wasserman Schultz, right here in Florida, caught red-handed stealing the Democratic nomination from Bernie Sanders, busted by the people at WikiLeaks, the journalists at WikiLeaks, published this sordid tale. Now, 4 years ago, Tim Canova, a Bernie Sanders supporter, challenged her in the Democratic primary, and he raised a significant amount from the grassroots to finish with a very strong 43%. In the end, Wasserman Schultz was able to win because she held on to the so-called condo commandos who deliver a very large and essentially bossed senior citizen vote of older voters. She won among Jewish voters, Catholic Democrats, while her opponent won among progressives, liberals, people of color. Mr. Canova has...
By the way, my friends, let me interrupt. The fact that Debbie Wasserman Schultz got support from the Jewish community makes me sad and ashamed to be Jewish. Jews should be smart enough to recognize when someone is a skunk, a dirtbag. She is. And to vote for her is inexcusable. Back to Roger Stone.
Indicated that he will have a rematch. Now, Carla Spalding, a Haitian, a registered nurse, a woman of great character, has emerged to seek the Republican nomination in this district. And on June 10th, she headlines a rally outside the local affiliate, Channel 10, a non-censorship rally. So this is a race to watch. We're going to be following it very closely here at InfoWars because Deborah Wasserman Schultz deserves the challenge she's about to get. Well, as Cary Grant might say, Julie Roginski, wrong. You see, we do respect Seth Rich's parents' request for privacy. Privacy is very important, but truth is more important. Now, let me say several things about the Seth Rich matter that need to be said. Many of you know the topic of Seth Rich has turned radioactive almost overnight. The amount of energy being expended by the left to bury this issue and to end any questions and to try to chop off the legs of anyone associated with it is obvious. Suddenly, the topic is supposed to be off limits. Now, there is a good bit of information out here that is disinformation. A email of John Podesta, where he is quoted as saying, "Let's make an example of the leaker," and relating that to Seth Rich is a trap, in my opinion, because that email was addressed at a much different time to Joel Benenson and Robbie Mook back in February of 2015. It had to do with potential members of the Hillary campaign in the finance department who were quoted in the press. This, I think, was used to discredit certain critics on the Seth Rich question. I don't base my suspicions about Seth Rich on this email, the important thing to remember is this. Mr. Rich headed a division of the DNC. He was not a low-level IT employee. He was in charge of the division from which documents very clearly were purloined or hacked or turned over and showed up on WikiLeaks. None of the accuracy or the authenticity of those documents has been challenged by the mainstream media. When we learned that the DC Metropolitan Police did not question the bartender or any of the employees in the establishment where Mr. Rich was last seen, when we learned that they did not request the security camera footage, when we learned that a DNC crisis manager and fixer is now, I believe, still working for the Rich family, when the Washington Post, the official House organ of the Central Intelligence Agency, the voice of the two-party duopoly of neocons that have taken this country down the crapper, tells us that we can't question what happened out of respect for the family's privacy. Well, as I said earlier, as much as I have sympathy for anyone over the loss of their son, the truth and where it leads is a key question.
My friends, the truth is being hidden here. You know it. I know it. This poor guy was murdered because he was leaking information from the DNC. And if that turns out to be proven, then it also proves that all this crap about Russia in collusion with Trump is nonsense. And this is the lifeblood of the Democrats, and so they won't let it go. Item from InfoWars. The Iraqi asylum seeker who raped a 10-year-old boy in a swimming center in Vienna will have his sentence reduced from 6 to 4 years after a judge felt his punishment was too, quote, draconian. On December 2nd, 2015, the 20-year-old Iraqi Amir A. brutally raped 10-year-old boy at the Theresienbad in Vienna and shocked the country after he claimed he had a, quote, sexual emergency. These are the people who are arriving in our neighborhoods, my friends. Hide your children. We'll be back.
Now this is the testimony of John, when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny.
Europe is getting used to attacks like this, Mika. We have to,
and they asked him,
because we are never.
"Are you Elijah?" He said,
Right,
"I am not." Are you the prophet?
I'm not going to play it.
No.
Of
The Gospel of John, chapter 1,
because of the
verse
stuff
19
they've had to
through
read
21.
that doesn't go out to the, the readers or the listeners.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Piccolo's restaurant in Denver reminds us that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver. It's not only the best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo's. Census, the uniformed people in Greeley, those police, firefighters, and 9/11 professionals work in our community. We thank them for doing a great job keeping our area safe to live, shop, and raise a family. We realize their job is dangerous and sometimes dangerous. This message is from Census, the uniformed people in Greeley. Call 352-2233. They're on the air because they care. And one of the most admired outsourcing companies in America. Census, the uniformed people in Greeley.
right, my friends, we're back. Howard Riell, Riell Truth. Remember, author of the book, Riell Truth, Stay Angry. Go online and get it. You will not be sorry. Now, let me go to... All right, we're back, my friends. Howard Riell, Riell Truth. Let me go to Sean Hannity. Since he's under attack, his free speech is under attack, I'm especially going to put Hannity on my show. Here he is from last night talking about terrorism. Go, Sean.
All here with reaction. But first, the Destroy Trump media continues to breathlessly push this bizarre tinfoil hat conspiracy, Russia collusion. No evidence do they have whatsoever. This has now become the biggest scandal in the history of the media and in this country. And now it's time to get to the truth, and we've got to set the record straight. Nobody else in the media will do it. And that is tonight's unique, in terms of media, opening monologue. All right, the Destroy Trump media absolutely refuses to follow the facts when it comes to the baseless claims of President Trump colluding with the Russians. Now, that's because these very radical, very rigid left-wing ideologues, it's clear they do not care about telling you, the American people, the truth. Their main objective is to smear, slander, besmirch President Trump, no matter what actual evidence exists or doesn't exist or what it shows. Now, these purveyors of very fake news are perfectly happy peddling their lies as long as it inflicts damage on President Trump or those close to him. They are willing to hyperventilate, breathlessly report, create a feeding frenzy after feeding frenzy, and push manufactured scandal after manufactured scandal, because the end goal and what this country is now up against is very, very simple here. The propaganda Destroy Trump media, they want President Trump to fail, and they want him out. They want him gone. They want him out of office. They want him impeached. Now, this Russia conspiracy theory narrative is a perfect example. The media has been running with this lie with no evidence for months and months and months. They have nothing. The media won't tell you that because they're hoping upon hope that their endless lies may eventually come to some smidgen of truth, or they'll just make it up. Now, as we've been showing you, this narrative has been crumbling right in front of their faces, but they refuse to let it go. So tonight, it is time for a reality check, and I hope you share it with your friends. We will do the media's job for them and lay out truth and facts. Now, let's start with former Obama CIA Director John Brennan testifying yesterday on Capitol Hill and admitting no evidence of collusion. Watch this.
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign that I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts to suborn such individuals. And it raised questions in my mind, again, whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, and that's your term, such collusion existed. I don't know. But I know that there was a sufficient basis of information and intelligence that required further investigation by the Bureau to determine whether or not U.S. persons were actively conspiring, colluding with Russian officials.
After all these months, no evidence of collusion? And by the way, that was not the only major revelation from the former director, and that's Director Brennan. When asked about the propaganda media's reporting that President Trump shared classified information with the Russians in the Oval Office, he admitted the same thing. Watch this.
I shared classified information with the Russians while I was director of CIA. CIA, on a routine basis, shares classified information with Russians on terrorism matters. It doesn't mean that it becomes unclassified. It means that it retains the classification, but is releasable then to Russia or to other partners. So that in itself is not unprecedented. And I don't know what was shared or said in the Oval Office, but if the reports in the press are true that Mr. Trump decided to spontaneously share some intelligence with the Russians, I think he would have basically violated two protocols.
We also have President Obama's former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, back in March. He's on the all-important Meet the Press show, saying the same thing. Watch this.
We did not include any evidence in our report, and I say our, that's NSA, FBI, and CIA with my office, the Director of National Intelligence, that had anything that had any reflection of collusion between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians. There was no evidence of that included in our report.
I understand it, but does it exist?
Not to my knowledge.
Now, on top of that, key Democrats. This is my favorite.
My friends, you heard it. The guy says we could find no evidence of it, and the supposed journalist, the fake news journalist, says, but does it exist? In other words, I know there's no proof, but is there proof anyway? They are so eager, the major media, the mainstream media, so eager, so chomping at the bit to find something to justify their stupidity and their craziness. Even when someone they're interviewing says there's nothing, their follow-up question is, but could there be something? Unbelievable. It is the death of journalism as we've known it. Let's go back to Hannity.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters also, one of the leading voices to impeach President Trump, have all had to admit and come clean and say the same thing. And they've seen no evidence of Russia collusion. Take a look.
The last time we spoke, Senator, I asked you if you had actually seen evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, and you said to me, and I'm quoting you now, you said, not at this time. Has anything changed since we spoke last?
So Wolf Blitzer is desperately hoping that Dianne Feinstein will say, yes, now we have proof. So let's hear what Feinstein says.
Well, no, it hasn't.
Nothing's changed. There's still no proof, Wolf. My friends, when I studied journalism back in college, 100 years ago, I have to tell you, this is not what they taught me. Journalists are supposed to be objective and seek the truth, seek the facts, and you shouldn't have an end game in mind when you're seeking those facts. But then again, I wasn't getting paid $1 million a year, or $2 million, or $3 million a year like Wolf Blitzer. That's a lot of money to lose. Let's go back to this clip with Maxine Waters being interviewed on MSNBC.
But just to be clear, there has been no actual evidence yet.
No, it has not been. No, it has not.
No, this chick is calling for Donald Trump to be impeached, even though after almost a year, no evidence. I'm sorry, I wasn't talking loud enough. I'll say it louder. No evidence. Zilch. And they still want Donald Trump's scalp. Why? For the same reason liberals always want what they want, because, they want it. That's called intellectualism in liberal circles. Back to Sean Hannity.
No evidence? Maxine Waters, Dianne Feinstein, all those people? Here's the serious part. This is what's so alarming about all this and why I am now calling this the biggest media scandal in the history of our republic. All of the facts that we just laid out for you have been completely ignored by the Destroy Trump media. Now, these people are impervious to the truth. They avoid it like the plague. They'd rather push a total, complete fabrication, made-up conspiracy theory, and that's what's going on in the country right now. It's sort of like a version of insanity is broken out. Now, take a look at how the media has pushed this false Russia collusion narrative, as Maxine Waters said, with no evidence.
Wouldn't it be nice if it was just completely, totally, absolutely impossible to suspect that Vladimir Putin orchestrated what happened in Syria this week?
Now, my friends, you can't see this video, although you can go to my Facebook page, Riell Truth Radio. I'll hang it up there. Here's this guy. I forget his name. He's one of the left-wing shills on MSNBC. He's talking to Rachel Maddow. He's got nothing real to talk about. So he's talking crap, he's talking fake news, and Maddow, Rachel Maddow, is smiling and nodding his head, just like when, KKK people get together and talk about how some races are inferior than the others. They nod their head, yeah, we all understand, we get it, we believe, we're with you. It is sick and it's frightening.
So that his friend in the White House could have a big night with missiles and all of the praise he's picked up.
My friends, this is sedition.
24 hours. Wouldn't it be so nice if you couldn't, even in your wildest dreams, imagine a scenario like that.
I'll say it again. This Russian connection just keeps building, and every time it builds and expands.
This is Chris Matthews.
Trump himself is worried about what's swirling around under the covers.
CNN has learned new details of the FBI investigation into potential links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government.
Specifically, Willie, I think what it means is that a federal
Chris
judge...
Matthews says this whole Russian thing is building and building. The fact is, it's always been zero. There's zero proof. Anyone who's come forward with any information says there's nothing to it. It never happened. Not one single piece of proof in all these months. But according to Chris Matthews, who gets paid millions of dollars, it's building. It's getting huge. That's fake news. And if you're watching Chris Matthews on TV, you're an idiot. Because he certainly doesn't respect you. He lies to your face.
Found that people in Trump's organization were colluding with the Russians.
Yeah, they found it, except nobody found it. Except that's a complete lie. They're simply telling lies on TV. Knowingly, intentionally. And there are enough Americans with low enough IQs that they keep watching these people. I just don't get that. Back to Hannity.
This is now beyond disgraceful. And by the way, this is the same media that WikiLeaks proved colluded with the Hillary Clinton campaign, and they're willing to go so off the deep end and push these ridiculous theories that, again, we have no evidence for, and so far has been proven false. Now, this is the question I want to ask tonight. President Obama and the Democrats are so concerned about Russia meddling. Well, then why did they wait until after President Trump was elected to make such a big deal about it? And by the way, if it was so alarming and so egregious and posed such a major threat to our democracy, well, don't you think they should have said something before the election? Now, according to the former CIA director, Mike Riell, it turns out that President Obama did nothing to stop Russian interference. And remember, there was also testimony out there that said they did it in previous elections and they'll do it in future elections. Take a look.
So what struck me, Charlie, is that the U.S. government was concerned enough last summer about Russian interference in the election that they had the CIA director make contact with his Russian counterpart and tell them to stop. And the Russians clearly didn't. So my question is, what did the Obama administration do after that, after they learned that the warning had fallen on deaf ears?
It appears they did nothing.
It appears they did nothing.
It appears the Barack Obama administration did nothing. My friends, on so many levels, the Barack Obama administration did nothing except for things that strengthened and armed and funded terrorists and that made Americans poorer and weaker. And liberals still love Barack Obama. There's no cure for stupid. Back to the video.
And finally tonight, let me say this. If it turns out that someone from inside the DNC, for example, somebody that supported Bernie Sanders or was frustrated that there was collusion and corruption and a denial of a free and open election process as it relates to the primary with Hillary Clinton, if something like that happened, wouldn't that blow the entire Russia collusion theory out the window? And isn't that something they may be afraid of? Joining us now, the author of the new and best-selling book, Understanding Trump, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. Sorry about the long introduction. I just want your general thoughts here. And if there's ever evidence, I'm willing to look at it. But when everyone says no evidence, and it's gone on for thousands of TV hours, what am I to think of this? What do you think about it?
Well, look, I think, first of all, this is an attack media, not a news media. This is a group of people who get up in the morning and know that Trump has done something horrible. They're just not sure what it is yet. Anything which could hurt Trump gets exaggerated, and it becomes somebody talked to somebody who might someday know something. If you looked at the number of New York Times and Washington Post stories that begin with unnamed sources told us. And I thought Trump one day had a great line when he said, I challenge you to only print the ones that have named sources.
Yeah, but that would require the major media to tell the truth, and my friends, that's one thing they cannot and will not do. We're about to hit a break. Item from InfoWars. A Harvard University study has confirmed that the majority of Americans across the political spectrum believe that the mainstream media publishes fake news. The survey found a whopping 65% of voters do not trust the media and concur with President Trump that the likes of CNN and the Washington Post push false information. We'll be back.
R&R Supply Incorporated in Fort Collins reminds us, every day our troops demonstrate their dedication to our nation. Now is the time for us to return the favor. Hire our returning veterans to past. After investing their lives in our nation, they deserve our investment today. This message is from R&R Supply Incorporated in Fort Collins, and they're on the air, reminding all of us that our freedom has never been free.
And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 16.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
Elizabeth Locker plan reminds our listeners that the drug problem is well documented. We know our kids will be approached at early age. We want to applaud the youngsters in our community who have had the strength no to drugs. They provide examples to their peers and families to be the best they can be. That's from Elizabeth Locker plant located at 366 Grand Street in Elizabeth, serving our area since 1943 and specializing in naturalized aged beef and pork and complete custom process. Call 333-688-2240. That's 333-688-2240. If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Ferris Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-781-0343. Ferris Survival.
Associates at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter, Lafayette, Vermont. No one anywhere is more noble, righteous, selfless, and courageous than our United States Armed Forces. These brave men and women and their families foot the bill for our freedom every day. And the military continues today to let them know that they are in our hearts and our prayers and our thoughts. This message is from the Associates at your 24-hour Walmart Supercenter on Highway 287 in Lafayette. They're on the air because they care.
My friends, Barack Obama is unhappy. What are we going to do about it? Well, we'll probably chuckle and titter and giggle, but that's beside the point. Donald Trump went to the Middle East, had a fantastic trip, represented the United States wonderfully, showed that he's presidential, that he's a leader, that he's smart, that he can gather people around him, leaders of other countries, and get them on board. Every account says it was a smashing trip. And of course Obama doesn't like it because it shows Obama to have been the nothing, the weenie, the zero that he was as president. Don't believe me? Here's Rush Limbaugh.
This trip, Trump has been widely praised for his presidential stature, for his speeches, for the successes that he has had. Some people look at them as successes, some people don't. I mean, the deal with the Saudis, you can look at that one of two ways. There's some people who think that Trump has sold out his supporters on Islam and Saudi Arabia by making this deal. Others are praising it. And I'm telling you, the praise has been noteworthy, and I mentioned it here on Monday. The stark contrast in the two Trumps, the Trump of this trip versus the Trump when he's in Washington. It's two different people. But really, is it? What's been different? With Trump over there on this trip, the drive-bys have not even been covering it. they've been still covering the Russian angle and the collusion and all of that. There have not been, have you noticed, any White House press briefings while Trump is away. And the absence of briefing from the White House press room has eliminated a central source of comedic material for late night shows every night. It has eliminated a source, numerous sources for the media to report and exaggerate and lie about what's going on with the Trump administration, because you don't have conflicts. You have Trump saying one thing overseas and that's it. You don't have a press briefing 2 hours later where he's contradicted by people in his own communications office, and which requires clarification. So you haven't had, while he's been gone, the appearance of a White House that doesn't know what it's doing. You've had the appearance of an administration that's buttoned down, very sure of itself, and it's got its agenda, and it's proceeding with it. My contention is that this bothers Barack Obama greatly. I think that Obama cannot stand that Trump is even being shown respect. I'll tell you something, folks. Do not doubt me on this. When Obama first visited the Saudis, remember he bowed and did all that? And the Saudis, they were respectful, but they didn't hail Obama or his visit. The Saudis went nuts over Trump. The king of Saudi Arabia was saying, for the first time, we may actually be able to move forward and make progress on things we have in common, fighting terrorism, whatever. Forget whether or not the Saudis meant it. That's not the point. The fact is, you're Obama. You're the smartest man in the world ever. You're the best president ever. You're the most widely respected, adored, and loved president ever. And you love the Middle East, and you love the Iranians, which is your problem with the Saudis, but still. You go over there, and they don't make a big deal out of you being there. Your media has to do that for you. Trump goes over there, and they act like it's the best thing that's ever happened in Saudi Arabia that Donald Trump showed up. So you're Obama, and you think you're the greatest thing that's ever been, because you've been told that your whole life, particularly the last 8 years. The world media has bowed down to you and told you you're the best of anything that's ever been alive. And you see Trump being treated better, with more respect than you got, and I guarantee you, if you're Obama, it would make you fume. And I'll guarantee you that Michelle Obama's doing a Rosalind Carter bit, jabbing him. You gonna let him get away with that? Remember Nixon's funeral? It's the exact same thing, folks. At Nixon's funeral, Bill Clinton grabbed a bunch of ex-presidents and party-goers and put them on Air Force One. They flew out there to San Clemente, and they all attended. And they had Henry Kissinger there, and Reagan and Nancy were there. Henry Kissinger was there. And they were all just raving about Nixon. It was unreal. Kissinger got up there. Bill Clinton was raving about Nixon. Hillary didn't say anything. She tried to put Nixon in jail, so she didn't say anything. And Jimmy Carter's sitting there, unbelieving what he's watching. He cannot believe this. And Rosalind's sitting there next to him. She can't believe it. And I just know that when that funeral was over, Rosalind Carter said, Jim, are you going to let this stand? They did this guy, Watergate, and he's portrayed as a greater president than you, and he was this and that, and listen to these people. You think they're going to say this? You better do something, Jim. And he began Habitat for Humanity shortly after the Nixon funeral. Because Carter, his administration was a bomb. It was a bomb economically. We had to have the misery index to actually calculate how rotten the economy was during the Carter 4 years. Do not doubt me on this. Rosalind Carter was a vicious loyalist. I say that in a complimentary way. She stood by her guy. She wasn't going to let Jimmy Carter get run down. And I guarantee you, they could not believe what they were hearing. With Nixon being praised, his outreach to China, Kissinger was talking about the brilliance of Nixon and all this. And I guarantee you this happened with Trump. Remember, they think he's the biggest walking joke ever. He's the biggest buffoon. He stole the election. He worked with the Russians. The guy, he's uncouth. He's barbaric. He's a pig. And here's everybody overseas is in love with the guy except for NATO and Theresa May. And Obama's sitting there fuming about it. So what does Obama do? Obama has to get in on the act. He just can't let this go by. He just can't let it exist on its own. So he goes over to Berlin, to the Brandenburg Gate, near where he made a speech as a candidate, and he had to start running down parts of Trump's agenda. Okay, here is Obama in Berlin.
All right, guys, we're going to take, we're coming up on about a minute with a break. I'll post this Rush Limbaugh video on my Facebook page also, Riell Truth Radio. I recommend you watch it and share it. Item from the Chicago Tribune. 4 teenage boys were shot over 4 hours in Chicago, including a 16-year-old killed in the South Shore neighborhood, according to police. The 16-year-old was shot in the head around 9:20 p.m. on Wednesday. My friends, they're getting more efficient in Chicago. Yeah, people are still getting gunned down in the street, but now they're averaging 1 per hour. Now, for Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, he's been unable to stop the slaughter, but at least he's worked to pick up the pace of the slaughter. He's averaged it out to 1 innocent bystander shot per hour. Now, if you're Rahm Emanuel and you've got your head up your ass because you spent the last decade kissing Barack Obama's ass, you're probably out there touting your greater efficiency. Fact of the matter is, in city after city after city around this country, cities have been run by Democrats are disasters. Economically, security, either way. Democrat policies don't work, never will work. Don't ever vote for them. We'll be back. More Riell Truth.
I'm here with the DuPont Pioneer team. So tell us, what are you bringing to the table to help producers manage feed costs?
Feed management is always on a producer's mind.
It sure is. But we take a whole operation approach to help them maximize feed value.
By combining the right products with our expertise and services, we can help producers improve profitability.
It's big picture thinking for big time production. So work with your DuPont Pioneer team to get the most out of every bite. Pioneer, with you from the word go. He was in the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 10 through 13. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the America News Network. Uniform equals freely. We thank them for doing a great job. Shop and raise the family to realize their job things sometimes things. Especially from symptoms uniform equals freely. Call 352-2233. They're on the air because they care. To the uniform people in freely.
My friends, we got still more problems. Even bigger problems. We're getting to the point where terrorist attacks are being considered the new normal. You hear about them in the news, then you go on to something else, like sports scores. My friends, there's nothing normal about people being butchered. Nothing. And we can't let it get to the point where it seems normal, or where we get comfortable enough with it that we don't do everything we can to stop it. Here's Tucker Carlson from Fox News last night.
Well, Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. British authorities are continuing to investigate the suicide bombing in Manchester on Monday, the one that killed almost 24 people. And nothing they have found so far will surprise you. 7 people have been arrested for possible involvement in that plot. Police are warning that bomber Salman Abedeh may simply have been the mule for a bomb built by someone else, and that person remains at large and could strike again. So that is one concern. But there are other facts in the case that ought to get policymakers thinking deeply about how and why this happened. And again, this will all seem familiar to you if you watched any of these before. The bomber was born in Britain, not some far-off land, but he still grew up to embrace Islamic radicalism and declare war on the country that raised him and killed him.
Stop! This point is huge, my friends. The security people will tell you, we got to keep radical Muslims from coming to our countries. Well, yeah, that's true. But we've also got to keep an eye, as this kid points out, on Muslims who are already in our country. In fact, Muslims who were born in our country, because any Muslim is a potential terrorist because they all read the terrorist handbook called the Quran. And any Muslim on any day is liable to take part in a terrorist act. That's why I've called for the quarantine of Islam in the Middle East, in Muslim countries. Sorry, Tucker, go ahead.
His neighbors, in effect. There are many more like him. A new report released by the British government concludes there are about 3,500 people being watched as potential terrorists. Not a big country. At least 400 people who have returned to Britain after leaving to fight for ISIS, the very group that took responsibility for the Manchester bombing.
Now, my friends, which sounds to you like a more common sense way to proceed? Having hundreds of thousands, no, millions of Muslims in a country and having to watch them day and night, to surveil them, to listen in on their phone calls, to monitor their emails, to keep a close watch on what's being said at mosques, or to have none of them in your country and sleep peacefully at night. Which is preferable? Which do you think will work better? Exactly.
So maybe there's lessons here, patterns that lawmakers need to consider as they respond, or we could go with the traditional choice, the one favored by our leaders, which is to add British flags to our Facebook profiles, pretend that terrorism somehow brings us together rather than drives us apart, and dismisses anyone who asks real questions as a bigot and a nativist, so we can maintain the illusion that terror bombing is just an unavoidable fact of life in the big city. Which is the better option? Joining us now to help decide, Nigel Farage, he's the former leader of the UK Independence Party, UKIP, and Mark Steyn, the famous author, columnist, and sometimes guest host for Rush Limbaugh. It's great to see you both. So, Nigel, just a factual question first. There are Brits who the authorities know have gone to fight for ISIS, and they are walking free on your island. How can that be?
I simply can't believe it, Tucker. I mean, for the last few years I've said that either we take away the passports of people we suspect of being linked to ISIS and stop them going, or perhaps better still, when they've been to Syria, on their attempt to return, we take their passports away and stop them coming back in. And the remarkable thing is that we know of 400 that have been to fight in Syria that have returned, though we suspect the number maybe 1,000 or more, and yet we've only taken action against 40. It is, and I'm frankly sick to death of seeing prime ministers and leaders standing up after attacks, saying how awfully sorry we are for everything, when nothing is being done to counter the bad guys.
So, Mark Steyn, if you're running a country and you know that people in your country have gone to fight with the most grotesque terror group ever created, and you do nothing about it, you're really not trying to protect your population, are you?
No, I'm old-fashioned enough to believe in treason. You described this killer as British. These 850 people, I think, who are known to have gone off to fight in Syria and Iraq. Nigel will know this better than I do, but for purposes of comparison, at the height of the IRA's campaign, MI5 estimated that there were no more than 100 active operatives. And that involved just basically going 20 miles down the road. These guys traveled halfway round the planet to fight for the Queen's enemies. That's the definition of treason. I don't know why they're walking around on the street. We're told that it would be very expensive to throw 850 people into prison. Germany estimates that for every one of these suspects they're tracking, they need 60 people tracking that guy. So it's a lot cheaper to toss them into prison for going off and fighting for your enemies abroad than it is to have 60 people monitoring them and then doing nothing until 48 hours after they've blown up a bunch of people.
60 people, according to Germany, are needed to watch one Muslim terror suspect. 60 people. What if the Muslim was in a different country and those 60 people could be doing other things? Be nice, right? Yeah, it would be nice. Will it happen? Nah. Makes too much sense. Item from DallasNews.com. As promised by the administration of President Donald Trump, the number of new refugees arriving in the U.S., especially Texas, is in sharp decline, says the Pew Research Center. Portions of a controversial executive order by Trump cut by half the number of planned refugee arrivals this year. Refugee resettlement in Texas thus dropped nearly 70%, 70%, from October to April. Texas has historically been at the top or near the top in refugees, said Philip Connor, author of the Pew Report released Thursday. Connor noted drops have been seen in states around the country. Unquote. Fewer people, fewer welfare cases, fewer criminals, fewer potential terrorists are coming here thanks to Donald Trump. So, my friends, if you voted for Hillary Clinton, and I know Colorado went for Hillary, if you voted for Hillary Clinton, just between you and me, no one else is listening, just us. If you voted for Hillary Clinton, you either feel stupid or you really are stupid. We'll be back.
Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets are into the world. By this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come from the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. 1 John 4:1.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, and letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debt, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Piccolo's restaurant in Denver reminds us that over 750,000 children were reported missing last year. Over 58,000 of these were abducted by non-family members. Keep an eye out for youngsters at play, and if you see anything suspicious, contact the authorities immediately. This message from Piccolo's restaurant in Denver. It's not only the best Italian and Mexican cuisine, it's the people who care. Give them a call at 303-757-5166. 303-757-5166. Piccolo. Elizabeth Locker Plan and Elizabeth reminds our listeners that the drug problem is well documented. We know our kids will be approached at early age. We want to applaud the youngsters in our community who have had the strength to say no to drugs. They provide examples to their peers and families to be the best they can be. That's from Elizabeth Locker Plant, located at 366 Grant Street in Elizabeth, serving our area since 1943 and specializing in naturalized HB and pork and complete custom process. Call 303-688-2240. That's 303-688-2240.
Folks, remember, off on Monday, off on Wednesday and Thursday next week. The only way you're going to catch me is by listening on Tuesday or going to YouTube after I'm on the air and watching the show. Remember, Real Truth, stay angry. Buy it, love it, share it, make it a way of life. Why not? Item from CBSLA.com. A new study reveals there's a serious lack of lovemaking these days. Research published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior found Americans had sex 9 times fewer in the early part of this decade than they did in the late 90s. The biggest decline was among younger couples. Beverly Hills couples therapist Fran Walfish isn't surprised by the findings. Quote, "What I see in younger couples is one partner doesn't want sex and the other does, and they submit because all their attempts have been refused and failed," she said. Unquote. My friends, my impression is not that there's too little sex going on. My impression is that girls are getting pregnant as early as 12 these days, and that the number of out-of-wedlock marriages is completely out of control. That is the real truth. Item from ClickOrlando.com. A student wasn't happy with his F grade in his engineering class, so he logged into a faculty computer and changed it, according to the University of Central Florida Police. Sammy Adel Amar, 22, was arrested Tuesday on a warrant after detectives linked him to the grade change, unquote. My friends, I'm not saying this kid did what he did, cheated because he's a Muslim. I will say, however, that as a Muslim, he should be attending school in a different country. Item from Breitbart. The Labour mayor of Greater Manchester has claimed the suicide bomber who killed 22 was not a Muslim, insisting that the worst that can happen is people blaming Muslims. Andy Burnham, former Labour frontbencher who was elected mayor this month, insisted the attack claimed by Islamic State had nothing to do with Islam. Quote, "The message that I want to get over, and this is how the vast majority of people feel, this man was a terrorist, not a Muslim," he said, speaking to LBC Radio. "He does not represent the Muslim community. We've got to keep that distinction in mind all the time. This was an unspeakable act. The worst thing that can happen is that people use this to blame an entire community, the Muslim community." Unquote. Mr. Burnham, you are a jackass. And if you were simply a moron, that would be bad enough for you, not for me. But the fact is that you're the mayor of Manchester and you're a horse's ass means people will be killed. The kid who did this was a Muslim. But Andy Burnham is a liberal. And you know, liberals recognize no fact, no reality, except the ones they find pleasant. And so the kid was a Muslim, but the liberal mayor says, nah, he wasn't a Muslim. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, the worst thing that can happen, as far as I'm concerned, is that more innocent men, women, and children will be murdered in cold blood. Not so, says the liberal mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham. He says the worst thing that could happen is people will think bad things about Muslims. So, my friends, you see the greatest threat facing the West, England, the rest of Europe, America. The greatest threat facing us is not Islam. I'd say that's the second greatest. The greatest threat facing us is liberalism, which lays us open to attack by Islam, which makes us vulnerable to jihad from Islam. There you have it, my friends. I'll be back, as I said, on Tuesday with more Real Truth. In the meantime, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay angry. Hasta luego.